Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Today I'm going to answer another one of those frequently asked questions I get in the comments, and that is, why do I use the 360 Magnum engine? And I want to start off with a little history, but also, first off, I'm not here to persuade anybody to get a 360 Magnum or any Magnum versus the LA. This is just me answering a question. So anyways, when I was about 25, 26, 2006, something like that, I bought a Dakota, an 88, with no engine in it, with the intent to do a V8 swap. And I ended up buying an old Dodge van, a V van, that had a 360 and a 727 in it, so I could pull that stuff out and use it in the Dakota. Well, I paid $300 for the van and pulled the engine transmission. Once I took the engine apart, it was just an LA 360, and once I took it apart, it was garbage. The thrust bearing went out, thrust bearing went out, and the crankshaft had just been destroyed. So I ended up selling that block off, and a guy I worked with at the Dodge dealer, he told me he had a 360 Magnum with the transmission, and it came out of a 2002 Dodge Ram, and he wanted $1,000 for it. So I bought that from him and took the transmission, sold it for whatever, I think $300. So I'm in the engine for like six or $700, somewhere in that neighborhood. And I wanted to do a cam and intake, stuff like that. And back then, the only thing that was available was the comp cam, and it was a 512 lift. I think they also had a smaller one, maybe a 480 lift, but I got the 512. And also was able back then to get the M1 intake. Now they're hard to get. You can buy them used, but they're hard to get. So that combination, I put the intake and the cam on it. I never even pulled the heads. I did change the valve springs. But that engine and that 88 Dakota, short bed, regular cab, ran 796 in the 8th mile. So for what I had in it, I thought it was good. Thought it was a good budget build, and it performed pretty well. So after I sold that truck, I ended up getting Big Red back, and the engine was blown in it when I got it. So I decided to go with 360 Magnum again. I found one for $600 out of a 2000 Dodge Ram 2500 4x4. And that engine is right there in the Valiant right now. And I don't know how many miles are on it, but anyway, that engine in Big Red with a set of long tube headers and the Proform intake, it ran pretty good. But when it was time to move on to more power, once again I decided to go with the 360 Magnum. And what leaned me that way again is price. For rebuilding, if I bought an LA, the chances of having to rebuild it are very high. They got a lot of miles on them, and they're going to be worn out more than likely. And we're kind of getting to where I think the Magnums are also like that because they're getting older. But anyway, so 5 years ago, I went ahead and I had a friend. He called me, said he had a 360 Magnum short block. I paid $150 for it. I didn't rebuild it or anything. I had a set of heads I threw on it, and I wanted to try to make a little more power than I did with the Dakota. So I ended up just hand porting the heads myself and put valve springs, put the Edelbrock intake on it this time because quality, and I think it probably flows better than a Proform. I don't know that for sure, but I would assume so. And Hughes cam and valve springs again. And the cam and valve springs for the Magnums I think are a little bit more. That intake, the Edelbrock, is now $400, so that's gotten a little bit more expensive, but still that build, I mean, I think I've got like $1,200 in parts on that truck, and it runs on the engine side. Got about $1,200 into that engine, and it runs 1271 is the fastest in the quarter mile. 1271 at 104.9. So what I'm getting at is, for me, it's bang for the buck. I can get a short block most of the time that doesn't need any work on it, and the heads pretty much do a valve job, maybe shave them, but yeah, it's just money for horsepower. Now, the old X heads, the old J heads for the LAs, they flow really nice. The 308s from the later 90s or later 80s for the LAs also flow nice, but the Magnum heads flow really good, and also a Magnum has a little bit more compression. So you have 9-to-1 compression, and if you're buying like in early 80s, late 70s LA engine, you're still like in the 8.7 range, I believe, maybe 8.5. So you get a little bit more compression out of these engines. So that makes for a little bit more power. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. Bang for the buck. I'm trying to keep everything at a reasonable cost when I build these things. And just rebuilds on LAs, I think, or rebuilds on anything, have gotten pretty expensive. And honestly, in Tallahassee, I don't really have anybody like a machine shop I would trust. So there's that too. One thing I want to add about the Magnums is I think you're kind of limited on intakes and valve train. So as far as intake manifolds, you have the Edelbrock air gap and the Crosswind air gap. I think those are the only two left in production. Of course, you can find used intakes with the Magnum bolt pattern, or you can also have the heads drilled for the LA style intake manifolds. But and then as far as valve train, I don't think they make a solid lifter cam for it. So just hydraulic roller cams, and I think that's about it. But anyways, hope you guys enjoy this video, and I will see y'all again soon.